In 1993, the world had a simple belief. Power ruled. If you were the strongest in the room, you were the king. If you ran faster, hit harder, and carried more muscle on your frame, you were untouchable. The iron told the truth. The mirror confirmed it. The crowd cheered it. Combat, we thought, was a test of horsepower. Then two men walked into McNichol's sports arena and turned the idea on its head. On one side stood Ken Shamrock, 212 pounds, built like a fortress, a veteran of pancrase, dense muscle layered over the kind of balance only years of wrestling can build. He looked like he could move a car with his bare hands. To a casual eye, he was the prototype. The facility, strength, conditioning, explosiveness, everything we measured, he had. Across from him stood Royce Gracie, 176 pounds, slender, wrapped in a white gi that seemed more ceremonial than practical to everyone who had never felt its purpose. Calm eyes, relaxed posture. He did not look like a man built to resist a storm. To the audience, this was a mismatch. To history, it was a test, not of men, of ideas. This was the facility against the system. The facility is raw force. It is push, pull, sprint, lift. It is impressive and real. It is built with discipline, hours, and hunger. But it is finite. The facility runs on fuel, and it burns it fast. The system is different. The system is a chain of decisions. It is leverage, angle, timing, patience. It is the study of physics applied to human error. It takes what force gives and reroutes it. It neutralizes explosion by denying it targets. When the facility spends itself, the system still has room to maneuver. Royce came to show the system. Ken came to represent the facility, and the world was about to learn how those two meet when the bell rings and history holds its breath. Here is the tale of the tape. Slow your voice, slow your breathing, reduce the moment to its parts. This is where truth lives. Ken Shamrock, 212 pounds, thick forearms, thick neck, a wrestler's base, pancrase experience, submissions under pressure, clinch strength, a clear 36-pound advantage, a lifetime of drilling grips, takedowns, and spine-stiff resolve. Royce Gracie, 176 pounds, narrow waist, long limbs, a gi wrapped like scripture, a student of his father's doctrine, a system refined to let a smaller human dismantle a bigger one. Calm footwork, calm eyes, calm heartbeat. Now freeze the camera, feel the quiet. The announcer's voice moves, but your ear wants silence, because this is the stare down. Two men, one glance. Ken scans the frame. He sees size, he knows strength, he knows what happens to smaller men who stay on the feet. He knows what happens to smaller men who try to wrestle. He has felt joints bend and necks fold in his hands. He knows how fast he can close space. Royce sees something else. He sees a chin that lifts when pressure rises. He sees feet that plant firm, with traction he can test. He sees arms thick with power, and he feels the drag those arms will carry if they are forced to frame, pummel, and recover again and again. Royce is not playing chicken with a train. He is laying tracks to divert it. This is not a contest of pride. It is a sequence to be executed. Take the breath again. Count it. 3, 2, 1. They move. The crowd expects what gyms taught them. Big punch, big takedown, big finish. But the system has no interest in drama. It has interest in contact. Royce does not wait. He does not circle into space where speed rules. He erases the runway. He steps into range and gets hip to hip. Elbows tight, head position calm, arms close the frame, not to wrestle strength for strength, but to cancel the spear. Distance dies. This is step one. Understand distance in fighting. Too far and the longer, faster, stronger hands decide. Too close and brute force decides. But the clinch with the correct structure is an in-between land. It belongs to leverage. It belongs to frames. It belongs to the one who can set hooks with legs and deliver pressure with the skeleton instead of with muscle. Royce finds this land. He does not strike. He does not dig underhooks out of ego. He accepts the time in it. Why? Because the system is built to eat time when time is food. He doesn't stall. He calculates. Shamrock is not passive. He is danger from anywhere. His hands grab. His base bites the canvas. He wants the sudden change. A lift, a trip, a throw. He's felt smaller men fold. He wants to fold one more. But the path will not be strength to strength. It will be line to line. The fight hits the mat, not with chaos, with intent. The world leans forward. This is the part they do not yet understand. Two men entangled, and no one seems to be moving much. But underneath the surface, every inch is war. Royce frames. Ken pressures. Royce shifts hips not to flee, but to create a lever length. Ken tries to plant a palm. Royce breaks the post. Ken tries to square. Royce changes the angle. Shamrock's strength is real. It does not disappear, but it keeps missing targets. And that is the system doing its work. Scramble. Royce tracks the spine. Hands find the strap behind the shoulder. Chest lines up with shoulder blades. One arm wraps neck. The other arm snakes under, finishing the seatbelt. Hook in, second hook in. He floats with the back like a coat you cannot shrug off. This is not muscle. This is math. The choke begins before the squeeze. It starts with position. The back take is geometry. Your chest glued to their spine limits their turn radius. Your head hides next to theirs, under their chin, so strikes lose arc. Your hips mirror their hips. Your heels bite the inner thighs. Your knees pinch. Your seatbelt sits high. One arm over the shoulder. One arm under. Hands locked. This is the seatbelt. It is the harness. It is how you keep the pilot from ejecting. Here is where the pace accelerates. Follow closely. Arm one slides from the seatbelt. The forearm brushes the jaw. The biceps carves a path around the neck. The other hand feeds the wrist like sushi on a conveyor belt. The crook of the elbow wants the throat, not the windpipe. The arteries. The human neck is a hallway with doors. Down that hallway run the carotids. They carry blood to the brain. You do not need to crush. You need to block. Pressure on both sides starves the signal. Brain says sleep. Shamrock peels at the top hand. That is the correct defense. You fight the hand that is cutting the artery. You fight the blade, not the handle. He knows this. His hands are strong, but the system doesn't give him the grip he needs. The hand is hidden behind the head. The head is pushed into the crook. The elbow has found its home. Shoulders retract. Chest expands. Hips press. The squeeze is not arms alone. It is a whole frame closing. The parts become one thing. The choke tightens, and the clock speeds up. 40 seconds. 50. Then stillness. Tap. It took 57 seconds to rewrite a law of the street. It was not 176 pounds beating 212. It was not gi beating no gi. It was not old beating young. It was not magic. It was mechanics, a forearm as a wedge, a biceps as a wall, a radius bone pressed against a carotid, a back position that is secure, repeatable, and cruel to strength. When placed correctly, the choke does not care about yesterday's bicep curl numbers. When placed correctly, the choke ignores your deadlift. When placed correctly, the choke walks past muscle and whispers to the brain, time to go. Physics settled the argument. The system did what it was designed to do. And for the first time on a global stage, the world saw the quiet truth. Technique steals certainty from strength. When the hand was raised, the arena did not just see victory. It saw a doorway. That doorway opened into a new era. To understand the depth of it, you need to return to the tail of the tape and see what it hid. A 36-pound difference often decides a fight when both fighters share a style. But when style changes shape, weight becomes a variable, not a sentence. Distance control changed the math on strikes. The clinch collapsed the runway for horsepower. The back take changed the axis of the fight. Gravity became a partner. Structure took over where muscle drains out. And the finish came from the most defensible concept in hand-to-hand combat. Cut the blood, end the conversation. The night did more than crown a winner. It crowned a method. The father of that method, Gracie, had spent a lifetime refining it. Make the smaller person safe, turn defense into offense, save energy, spend energy only when the lock is airtight. Build around leverage, build around frames, build around patience. Never wrestle strength for pride, wrestle it for position. The world was used to the sound of war drums. It had never prepared for chess. From that night forward, the facility had to evolve. The iron did not vanish. It changed purpose. And every fighter paying attention took notes. The rivalry between Ken Shamrock and Royce Gracie did not end there. It matured. It tested the edges of what the system and the facility could do when both had seen the other. At UFC 5, those two men met again, and they did not sprint. They sank. They sank into a 36-minute stalemate that reran the endurance expectations of a young sport. It was not chaos. It was pressure. It was blade sharpening blade. It was a lesson. When two elite operators understand both their toolkits and the other man's toolkit, The windows are paper thin. A wrong grip costs a position. A wrong breath costs a scramble. A wrong angle costs a fight. Neither man made the mistake that would open the door. And that too taught the crowd something radical. There is violence in the absence of motion. There is threat in the stillness. There is fear in feeling an opponent's weight melt into yours and realizing he is not trying to lift you. He is trying to remove your choices. And Royce did not stop with Shamrock. He took the system to absurd lengths. He stayed in the fire for 90 minutes with Kazushi Sakuraba. 90 minutes. Across that span, the body begs for shortcuts. The brain begs for breath. The heart begs for rest. But the system speaks softly in moments like that. It says, keep your frames, keep your posture, keep your hip angle, keep your grips. Make the small right choice, over and over. The giant trick is not a trick. It is the sum of the 1,000 little rules that prevent collapse. This is the Godfather era. It is the foundation. And everything you see in modern MMA grows out of that soil. Look at champions who broke men with position, not just with pace. Khabib Nurmagomedov lived in this doctrine. Cage pin, head position, lower body traps, wrist rides, shoulder pressure. He removed it. Islam Makhachev carries the same blueprint with a different accent. Chain wrestling, submission threats aligned with strikes. And understanding that a hand on your wrist is a hand stealing your inhale. Others built their own dialects. They all share a root. Distance control, positional hierarchy, efficiency under fatigue, technical suffocation. Strength never left the arena. It just got defined. It understood its place. It learned to serve strategy. The new language of fighting put intelligence first. It required the iron, but it demanded the plan. As you hear this, understand the contrast. There is the storm of the facility, barbells clanging, hard sprinting, chalk dust, steel. That is part of the story. And there is the silence of the system. 2 hands controlling a sleeve, a foot on a hip, a knee splitting the line, a breath that doesn't change under pressure. That is also part of the story. The visual language of this episode follows that truth. When you feel the hurricane of conditioning and brute work, imagine the frame shifting to high-intensity CrossFit and bodybuilding grit. Think stock footage club capturing the veins, the sweat, the loaded bar. When the scene moves to chess on canvas, think of the other stream, technical grappling and BJJ captured with precision. That is Freezer's Pexels and Pixabay integration. We alternate because the story alternates. Steel and silk, collision and calculation. The facility and the system, seen and felt. Now return to the moment that changed the clock. The 57-second finish is often told as a surprise. It wasn't. It was a trap sprung with no wasted movement. Let's break it down like coaches do, fast and clean. Phase 1, entry. Royce steps in with hands ready to frame, not to trade. His head lowers just enough to hide his chin without butting. His feet don't cross. He closes space in 2 beats. First to touch, second to attach. Phase 2, clinch. He doesn't chase underhooks at the cost of posture. He stays square. His elbows are magnets to his ribs. His spine is upright. His head finds Ken's jawline to create an off-axis. That little angle erases a fraction of Ken's power. A fraction is enough when you multiply it later. Phase 3, off balance. This can be a foot sweep, a reap, a sag. The method matters less than the principle. The principle is this: make the other man carry your hinge. When he loses his line, the floor becomes a tool. Phase 4, transition. Gravity is not chaos here, it's a cooperator. As the mat arrives, Royce is already hunting the spine line. He does not reach for a headlock. He does not chase the neck from the front where the arms are still dangerous. He rides the back angle like a surfer locks a rail. Phase 5, back control. Seatbelt, hooks, hips tight, chest glued. He removes space because space is escape. Every micro gap he can close is a door he can lock. The longer the ride, the more desperation rises. Desperation reveals the neck. Phase 6, choke setup. One arm talks to the neck. The other arm plays the accountant. It manages the wrists. It clears the peel. It slides behind the head to hide the primary hand. The chin resists. Fine. The forearm slides under the jawline. Chin beats forearm for a second. Forearm beats artery forever. Phase 7, finish. Shoulders shrugged. Elbow tucked. Hands connected. Chest lifted. hips pressed. The squeeze is everything moving as one. It is a disciplined closing of a triangle. Once those sides draw together, the math is settled. That is the system in action. No guesswork, no prayer, just ordered technique applied to a human problem that looks like chaos to everyone else. And here is the part most miss. The system is not weak. It is not passive. It is the most aggressive possible use of minimal energy. It is pressure delivered with the skeleton, so the muscles can stay in reserve until they're needed. It is the enemy of panic. Panic comes when the plan runs out. The system is a plan that loops. Pause. Breathe. We are at the midpoint of our journey. At the 12-minute mark, we set a waypoint. If you want to build this kind of understanding without drowning in noise, I want you to have the right tools. There are 2 links below. One leads to Smart Skill Path. It's a clean route through skill building, curated so your brain doesn't waste reps on fluff. The other leads to MMA Champ HQ. That's where you get fight IQ without the nonsense. Breakdowns, drills, systems that stack. If you learn better with order, use them. If you coach and need a tighter playbook, use them. Smart Skill Path and MMA Champ HQ. Links are sitting below this video. Mark them. Visit after this round finishes. Now, let's tighten the lens again. The broader story of the facility versus the system is not tribal. It is not about picking sides. It is about integration. The iron became a support system for the technique. Fighters started building gas tanks that could power patient decisions for 25 minutes. They built bridges across the old gaps. Striking to enter clinch, clinch to break posture, posture broken to takedown, takedown to control, control to submission or strikes. Everything in service of the larger idea. Don't spend what you don't need to spend. Don't fight where your opponent is begging you to fight. Don't play the first game, play the last. Watch how modern champions live this. They don't chase chaos. They create inevitability. They collect habits. Head on chest, shoulder under chin, hips under hips, hands on wrists, knees guiding thighs, feet capturing ankles, pressure points telling the body where to go and where not to go. It is a conversation in a language of joints and levers. The man who speaks it more clearly wins. And the legacy of the Gracie doctrine reaches beyond cages and ropes. It touches every athlete who has to think longer term than a single round. You want to last? You need a process. You need recovery as part of the system. You need a facility that serves the mission, not a mission that serves the facility. Longevity is not an accident. It is a stack of decisions. It is how you train. It is how you breathe. It is how you rest. It is how you repair tissue after you ask it to do hard things. You cannot cheat biology, but you can guide it. You can turbocharge circulation with the right stimulus. You can lower nervous system noise with the right signals. You can repair fibers so they can fire on call tomorrow and the day after and 10 years from now. For the fighter, the tactical athlete, and the entrepreneur who lives in their own kind of cage, this is not luxury. This is survival. Years of micro-trauma do not vanish. They add up. They change how you move. They change how you think. They change how you sleep. If you want to carry the system forward into your 40s, your 50s, and beyond, you match it with a recovery facility that is just as technical. That might be cold exposure at the right dose, panching breath work into your morning, mobility work with surgical precision, soft tissue work that doesn't just feel good, but changes how you lay joints. You dial in the tools, you use technology that treats your nervous system like a switchboard and helps you reset it. You build a plan that lets discipline grow wiser, not just tougher. That is how the Godfather's lesson lives beyond the cage. Technique over force, process over panic, recovery as part of performance, the facility repurposed to protect the system. Now, back to the rivalry that revealed these truths. UFC 5 gave us the quiet violence of control versus control. It showed that when fighters become mirror-smart, time stretches. It showed that endurance is not just breath and legs. Endurance is mental calm while your arms feel like fire. Endurance is the refusal to make a cheap choice that would hand over your neck or your back or your balance. Endurance is the faith that if your frames are correct, your opening will come. It also taught a harsher lesson. Sometimes it does not, and that's real. At the top, margins are atoms. One slipped thumb, one misplaced knee, 1 second looking at the clock. These are the reasons the sport is addictive. You can't promise a finish. You can promise a study. And in Japan, a different test unfolded. 90 minutes, with Kazushi Sakuraba. Patience turned into an art form. Fainting legs, knees to the thigh. Hand fighting that looked small, but burned energy like a furnace. It was a duel of wills and of wisdom. And the world watching learned what a system looks like at extreme endurance. It is not flashy. It is not for highlight reels. It is brutal in its consistency. It is stubborn. It sets traps you see coming and still can't avoid, because avoiding them would cost a position you cannot afford to lose. It wears you down from the inside out, until one breath costs two, then three, then everything. This is how a legacy is built. Not with one punch, not with one night, with years of showing the same truth under 100 conditions. The truth holds, the system works, it grows, it adapts, and it seeds new systems in new gyms all over the world. Think about your own training. Think about the facility you have built. Maybe it's a garage with a barbell and a squat rack. Maybe it's a mat rolled out after midnight when the kids are asleep. Maybe it's a commercial gym where you carve out a corner and take notes when no one else is looking. Whatever it is, ask what it serves. Ask if it points to a plan. Ask if it feeds your technique, or if it steals gas from your mind before the hard rounds even begin. In this story, our visual rhythm keeps you honest. When you hear about horsepower, picture the explosive language of the stock footage club vault. Bars bending, ropes snapping, lungs ripping for air. When you hear about the system, picture the still, tight world of freezers, pexels, and Pixabay lens. Hands tying up wrists, hips loading to sweep, a chin disappearing under a forearm. The alternation is deliberate. It shows you what the athletes feel. The surge, the stall, the shift, the inevitable. This is also a truth you can use away from fighting. Build a method, break your days into systems, time your intensity, time your stillness, stack small correct choices, eliminate rush, learn when to burn and when to float. Protect your mind with structure. Your muscles will thank you later. And when you coach, teach that to your athletes. Don't just build lungs, build patience. Don't just build legs, build frames. Don't just build power, build alignment. You'll win more, sure, but more importantly, you'll last. We return one last time to the 57 seconds that started the avalanche. Watch it in your mind like a slow reel. They close, they touch. The clinch forms, the grip is quiet. The off-balance happens in a step that looks ordinary if you don't know what to look for. The back take arrives on a tide. The hooks enter like they belong there. The seatbelt anchors. The neck appears for a breath. The choke arrives as if it had always been there. Tap. It is inevitable, the way gravity is inevitable, and that is the point. The facility can be built. It can be lost. It can be rebuilt. The system once learned never leaves you. It sits under your habits and changes the way you solve problems for the rest of your life. So if you're a beginner watching this, welcome. If you're a veteran, this is your reminder. Stay a student. The mat punishes arrogance and rewards method. If you're an athlete beyond the cage, take the lesson. Don't let your work be only force. Let it be direction. Let it be elegant. Before we close, circle back to your toolbox. You do not have to wander. You can learn with guidance. The 2 links below are there for that exact reason. Smart Skill Path will route your training into a progression you can trust. Lessons that stack, skills that click into each other. MMA Champ HQ will sharpen your fight IQ with clean breakdowns, drills, and systems you can plug into your practice today. Hit them when this ends. Save time, cut the noise, build the plan that fits your life and keeps you in the game. And remember our visual split as you keep studying. Use the energy of the stock footage club mindset when you need to build engines. Return to the freezer pexels and Pixabay language when you need to upgrade your grips, your hips, your mind. Steel and silk. That is how you become dangerous in the right way. Let's do one final technical sprint. For the coaches, for the students who want the how, rear naked choke mechanics compressed. Start with control. No control, no choke. Back control means hips glued to hips, chest glued to back, head hidden, seatbelt high, over under, palm to palm grip if the hands are fighting, fingers relaxed until it's time to lock. Hooks if you lose a hook, do not panic. Reinsert. Use the threat of the choke to regain the second hook. Hand fighting. Always win the top hand. Hide your choking hand under their jawline. Cover with your non-choking hand behind their head. Chin defense is not a wall, it's a suggestion. Slide your forearm under along the jawline. Don't crush. Curve. Thumb to your chest, elbow to their chest, shoulder to their ear. This closes the loop without burning out your arms. Use your back. Your lat is part of the choke. Your chest raise is part of the choke. Your hips press are part of the choke. Squeeze with your ribs, not just your biceps. Big muscles are there to assist. Skeleton first. If the peel starts, switch to short switches. Short choke, palm to biceps, hand behind head, elbow down. This chokes through the jaw if necessary without injuring the windpipe. Finish with patience. The brain gives up fast when the carotids are blocked. Don't thrash, don't waste, the inevitable. It reads long, in practice, it's a breath. That is what mastery feels like. It feels like time slows, it feels like choices multiply for you and disappear for them. As we close, think about the road from 1993 to now. A young sport built on old wisdom. Athletes who look like monuments, ninjas of leverage who look like librarians, and both are needed. The facility needs the system builds on the facility. That is how you evolve. And when you leave the gym, protect the work. Recovery is not soft, it is strategy. Set up your own recovery facility with the same seriousness you bring to pads and rounds. Use science as your cornerman. Blood flow, tissue quality, nerve quiet, sleep. These are not side quests. They are the second half of every round. One last nod to the camera in your head. When you visualize this story later, keep the dual track. When the drums pound, the stock footage club muscles push. When the chest plays, freezers, pexels, and Pixabay precision pulls you in. That is how the lesson sticks. That is how the contrast becomes wisdom. This is your outro. It arrives at the 24-minute mark with a promise and a push. The promise, you can build this. You can become a problem for chaos by being ordered. You can become a threat without being reckless. You can last. The push, take the next step. The links are below. Smart Skill Path, MMA Champ HQ. Use them today. Keep the facility honest. Elevate the system. Then go do something hard. And do it with elegance. The Godfather's lesson was never about glamour. It was about gravity. He showed us that a smaller person can move a bigger one when the angles are understood. He showed us that silence can be loud enough to end a fight. He showed us that if you take away the other person's choices, they stop being dangerous. In 1993, the world watched two men collide. But over time, we realized what we actually saw. A collision between who we were and who we could become. We were muscle and rush. We could become method and inevitability. Choose the path that lasts. Build the facility that serves your system. Learn from those who built the map. And when it's your time to enter the arena, step in calm. Grip with purpose. Breathe like you have all the time in the world. Then prove it. That is the promise. That is the work. That is the legacy.